Ross Tucker, host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. He works for CBS, Westwood One, part of the Eagles pregame yesterday. And also on the call Saturday, Connecticut played Army on CBS. And then he worked last night, Westwood One, the Ravens and the Chiefs. And I think he was at a high school game on Friday night. Did I get your itinerary correct there, Ross?
You know what, Dan? Pretty good. Yeah, man. I drove up. I live in Pennsylvania, drove up to West Point on Thursday. Obviously, I watched Washington and the Giants. As you know, production meetings all day Friday with the UConn and Army coaches and players. But yes, I am an American citizen, Dan. It was a Friday night. So I got in my car and I drove until I found some lights. I actually went and saw Army prep play. But that's what you should do in America on a Friday night. You should find lights and go. So I went and watched Army prep play. I don't even know who they were playing Friday night. Saturday did UConn Army. I drive home, Dan. I made my wife. I got home at 7:15 Saturday night, just in time to watch the Penn State whiteout game. I made my wife stay up and watch the whole thing with me. Got up Sunday morning, Eagles pregame, watched the Eagles in the 1 o'clock games, drive to Baltimore, do the Ravens Chiefs, got home at 2:30, went to bed at 3, got up at 7. Now I'm on the Dan Patrick Show.
We have mad respect for you. We do. Let me ask you the poll question. The 2-0 team that won't make the playoffs. If I said Broncos, Raiders, Panthers, Cardinals, got a pick?
I'm going to go Cardinals. I would go Cardinals out of that bunch. Extremely fortunate to win that game yesterday. You know, Dan, I'm literally in the booth in Baltimore watching the Red Zone channel as the late games end. And I got to tell you, man, I know we've talked about it before. It just bothers me. I mean, at almost the exact same time, I watched Zerline make like a 56-yarder for the Cowboys to win. And Greg Joseph for the Vikings misses like a 35-yarder. And I feel bad for him. I mean, he's got to go in that locker room, and there's over 100 men just looking at him. He let them all down. Then they go on the plane. It still rubs me the wrong way that one guy makes it, one guy misses it, and everything changes as a result. But to answer your question, I just still think Arizona's division is too difficult. You know, they've gotten off to a good start, but I don't think they're better than the Rams, the Seahawks, or the Niners necessarily.
As far as the game last night with the Ravens and the Chiefs, when you looked at that first quarter, what were you thinking was going to happen with the Ravens and Chiefs?
Well, I thought it could get ugly. And last night sort of surprised me in the sense that I thought you had to play almost flawless to beat the Chiefs, right? You know, I thought the margin for error was so small. But actually, you know, they throw a pick six in the first minute. And then on their third drive, they're running the ball all over the Chiefs. And for some reason, Greg Roman called 3 straight passes from the 24-yard line. Lamar throws another pick. That one was all on him. And I thought, man, especially when it was 35-24 after that catch and run by Kelsey. But if you follow me on social media, and I know you do, Dan, I knew the Ravens were going to win that game in the second half because they had crab cakes at halftime. I am a big believer that it starts with the press box food. You set the tone for the organization and the entire operation. And at halftime, when they brought out the crab cakes, check my social media, everybody, at Ross Tucker NFL. I literally said, I expect a huge second half here from the Ravens, and they delivered. It started with the decision earlier in the week to do crab cakes at halftime.
You're sleep deprived. You are. You are. Is there a formula to beat the Chiefs?
Well, so they did a couple things that they rarely do. And let's be honest, Dan, if Edwards-Helaire doesn't fumble, they still win the game. You know, Butker makes a chip shot field goal, and we're having a much different conversation today. So, you know, it's not like the Ravens clearly got the better of them. I think one thing that is notable, though, is you can run on them again. And I think that is your best bet, is to pound the Chiefs, try to keep Mahomes on the sideline as much as possible. It's not just a time of possession thing. You still need to get some chunk plays. You still need to score points. I almost look at it, Dan, like, and I'm not a big tennis guy, but when you play the Chiefs, it's like you got to hold serve, man. It's like you got to score when you get the ball, because they are almost always going to. They so rarely get broken, except I think it might have been the last 3 or 4 drives that they got no points. That's the biggest shocker to me, because it feels like Mahomes and the Chiefs always come through in those situations.
I know with the Ravens not having a star running back, I would just have an empty backfield and just say to the defense, Lamar's doing something here. You can't spy on him, and that would be my approach. Is let's just spread it out. Maybe have another either blocker or wide receiver, and have an empty backfield, and just say to Lamar, "Go get him."
You know, the only reason why I think they don't do that is because so many of his runs start with a fake to the running back and some type of misdirection. Now, they'll give it to the running back sometimes on those wide runs just to keep the defense honest. But you are 1,000% right, Dan. When they're trying to get chunk yardage, when they really need it, he is not handing that ball off. I mean, he's faking it wide to the running back, and he is coming downhill. I got to tell you, as a former offensive lineman, I love doing the Army games on Saturday because I love watching that offensive line play. But I'm telling you, my rookie year was 2001. The Ravens have the most creative and entertaining run game I've ever seen in the NFL. I mean, it is so fun to watch. They're pulling guys one way, running the other, the fullback leading the double tight ends. Greg Roman, their offensive coordinator, deserves a ton of credit because it is really exotic and fun.
We're talking to Ross Tucker, host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, also does work for CBS and Westwood One, and part of the Eagles pregame for WIP Radio. You believing in the Raiders?
I think you have to. I was stunned that they won that game yesterday. After going Monday night game, that they had a valiant comeback in the fourth quarter and overtime, a late game Monday night goes to overtime to come to Pittsburgh against that defense. Now, they're fortunate. Joe Hayden was out. Devin Bush was out. TJ Watt got hurt. But I don't care. And Dan, I mean, I can't wait. I hope somebody does an MVP frontrunner article this week. Or that would be an awesome radio segment. Who's in the lead for the MVP? It's like every year somebody fights to see who can be the first one to start the MVP if it ended right now conversation. But I'm just saying, it's Derek Carr. I mean, he has been awesome in the first 2 games against very good defenses, very good opponents in the Ravens and Steelers. He's been probably the most valuable player in the league so far.
Okay, but the reason why I hate these MVP conversations, because last week it was Jameis Winston. That's why we don't have these this early in the season. I know we love content. I know we love to have who's the MVP? Is it Tom Brady? Is it Derek Carr? Week to week, that's why we had it Jameis Winston week 1 and then week 2. You want to give it to Derek Carr? Great. Give it to Derek Carr. And then let's see what happens in week 3 here. I did want to ask you about the Cowboys. What stood out from Dallas's win in Los Angeles?
2 things. Number one, I tweeted this yesterday, Dan. I feel like we need to acknowledge the fact it's been 2 years now. When you watch a Cowboys game, Tony Pollard just has more juice than Zeke.
I agree. That's why I wouldn't have re-signed Zeke.
I mean, Dan, Zeke is better as a pass blocker. But come on, dude. We're not paying guys like $15 million a year.
I'm not paying him to be if I'm paying him to be a pass blocker, that is money not well spent. Zach Martin is a guy that you pay to protect.
Yeah, so Tony Pollard, Zeke will probably be gone after this year. They can't keep paying him. The other thing that stood out to me, where I live here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, I saw Micah Parsons, Dan, play his 3rd high school game ever as a freshman. And he had 5 sacks. And I texted the guys I know at Penn State, and I was like, this freshman D-end at Central Dauphin High School is maybe the best I've ever seen. They offered him a scholarship, Dan, after his 4th game. Think about this, though, okay? He played linebacker at Penn State. Last week, DeMarcus Lawrence broke his foot on Wednesday. They moved Micah Parsons to D-end for the first time since high school On Thursday, he had a sack. He had 8 pressures, the most by a rookie since Nick Bosa back in 2019. He hadn't played the end since high school. There's no chance the Cowboys win that game if he's not playing DN. My guess is they'll probably keep him there.
Sure.
And it's kind of funny because think about yesterday. Micah Parsons and Odafe Owe for the Ravens, both rookies, both from Penn State. And right now, they're the 2 fastest defensive ends in the entire NFL. And they're both rookies from Penn State. It's pretty wild.
Is James Franklin going to be at Penn State next year?
I think he is, yeah. I mean, there's a couple things there, right? So number one, are we sure USC wants him? Are we sure he's the guy? You know, the AD. And by the way, Dan, I love listening and watching because you seem to have better connections and sources for college football news than anybody else does out there.
Yeah.
But I just feel like, Dan, the AD for USC came from Cincinnati. I mean, it's like it feels like 95% of the time those guys end up hiring the guy they know. And that would be Fickell.
I was told Fickell doesn't want to leave the Midwest.
That's interesting. Listen, here's what I would say. I think Penn State is a top 10 job in the country, and he's done an awesome job. He really has. I mean, Franklin did a terrific job. What they had Saturday night, that Auburn game, it's just incredible. But USC is a top 5 job because in California, you are the school and there's more 5-star recruits. And here's the other thing. Even in the Big Ten East, Dan, Penn State's 3rd in terms of resources behind Ohio State and Michigan. And not only that, you're always going to be battling Ohio State just to win your division in your conference. Whereas if you go to USC, you are the perennial favorite to win the Pac-12, to go to the college football playoff. It really depends on what Franklin wants. If he wants to win championships, it's definitely an easier path at SC than there is at Penn State in the Big Ten East with Ohio State.
I'll leave you with this. If the Packers lose tonight.
Oh.
Do you want to finish that? Or is that your answer?
I mean, that could be my answer, but I want to get off quick. I know you have a big guest in Andrew McLovin Perloff coming on at some point today. But no, in all sincerity, they're not going to lose tonight. There's no way. But if they did, wow, we would be having much, much different conversations about what's going on in Green Bay. Mm-hmm. No matter what, no matter how they lose, I highly doubt that happens. Although I kind of was impressed by Goff and the Lions in the second half against the Niners. Yeah. You know, Goff is too good of a quarterback, in my mind, Dan, for the Lions to be like a 2-win team. Goff's he's a professional, he's a solid quarterback. They're going to beat some people. I don't think it's the Packers tonight, though.
Great to see you. Get some sleep, okay?
I will. I'm going right back to bed, man.
That's Ross Tucker. He was very busy this weekend, host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. He was on the call Ravens Chiefs last night on Westwood One. He worked the Eagles pregame. He went to a high school game on Friday, and then Saturday did color commentating for Connecticut against Army on CBS Sports.